Okay, adopted. Original paragraph 4, 3. Yes, Armenia.
Armenia disagrees with this paragraph, and I would like our name to be recorded as appropriate and put in the summary record. So we want to maintain our position, and if this paragraph is adopted as it stands, Armenia refuses. Thank you.
We take good note of the position of Armenia regarding paragraph 3. And as regard paragraph 4, there is a motion for amendment from Armenia. In case there is nobody supporting, the paragraph 4 originally drafted is adopted. Yes, Armenia.
Same position, Mr. Chairman. We do not agree with the language of this paragraph, so Armenia does not agree to this paragraph.
Thank you. Paragraph 5. We have an amendment. Paragraph 5, as originally drafted, is adopted. Armenia, please.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Armenia also rejects this paragraph as it stands.
Paragraph 6. Paragraph Cyprus, yes.
Merci, Monsieur le Président. C'est dommage qu'on est arrivé ici, parce qu'il fallait éviter tout langage politique dans cette convention. En tout cas, ces paragraphes, nous l'approuvons. Merci.
I take it that the original paragraph is adopted. Yes, Armenia? No.
So we reiterate our position, and we do not adopt this paragraph as original. Actually, paragraph 6 is a new paragraph represented by Armenia, so there is no original language. It stands as proposed by Armenia. It's new paragraph. So we support this paragraph, a new paragraph as it is. Thank you.
No, please, can I be clarified on that issue? It is a new paragraph, paragraph 6, or is it paragraph?
Paragraph 6. And this one. Where it says Armenia, Cyprus calls upon the state party read the paragraph out to clarify. Paragraph 6. Don't look here, look there.
It's paragraph 6. Paragraph 6 seems to be a paragraph 6 is a new paragraph which has been added by Armenia. Do I take it that this paragraph has support?
Yes, by Cyprus.
Yes, Cyprus.
J'ai déjà dit que je supporte ce paragraphe et qu'il peut rester comme un nouveau paragraphe.
Yes. We have now paragraph 5, which which is supported by Cyprus.
Paragraph
6. Yes, paragraph 6. New paragraph 6, which is supported by Cyprus. Is there any objection to that?
Azerbaijan.
Yes, Azerbaijan.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. In my intervention, when I explained our position, we told that our report is not incompatible with the UN Charter. So we don't believe that we should put a special emphasis to that, provided that this language of decision already adopted by the committee in a chapeau decision 4 years ago. So there is no need to put these same amendments in a draft decision specifically related to the Chovgan game, because it doesn't relate anyhow to what is presented as a report in our report.
Armenia?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. We are obliged to refer to some of the decisions which were adopted during the previous intergovernmental sessions, committee meetings, because these draft decisions are not duly taken into account by some member states which continue abusing UNESCO forum. That's why we want to reiterate these decisions and exactly in this decision containing this report. Thank you.
Okay. Now we have got two suggestions. That one, to add a paragraph, and Azerbaijan is of the view that there's no need to add this paragraph, because it is going to be part of a chapeau which we have not yet taken note of up till now. And I wish to know what is the wish of the committee, whether we should include a new paragraph to restate previous decision taken. Azerbaijan?
Mr. Chairman, I would like to remind that any proposal amendments or amendment presented by the state party should be supported by the members of the committee, at least the half of the committee members. So if it is not the case, we cannot proceed with the adoption.
No, I can't say that in case there is an active support, we take it that if there is no objection as such, we take it that it is accepted. But now we have got a situation where Armenia wants to add a paragraph supported by Cyprus, and Azerbaijan wishes that it remains as it is. This is where we are. And I wish to know what are the views of other members. Philippine.
Thank you, Mr. Chairperson. Without taking a position on the language, we just would like to recall our discussions in the ad hoc working group and also in the Bureau about the decision-making process for draft decisions, wherein you announced the other day that you would take the same decision-making procedure as in the last session in Jeju, where we proceed, as you have already mentioned, on a step-by-step approach. If there is an objection to an amendment, you would look for relative support, which has been defined, of course, informally towards 1/3 of the committee. And thereafter, if there continues to be an objection, you would go then towards the 1/2. So I think to be consistent with our procedures and what you've announced, we should maybe take this procedure in moving ahead and just see how many, informally are supporting the amendment before making a decision on it. Thank you very much, Mr. Chair.
In fact, as of now, I can't say that we have got a relative support on the proposal to include Armenia. Yes, Palestine?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. The same vein of the intervention of our colleague from Philippines, the decision making that we agreed upon, actually, if there is one objection, then the chair will seek active support, 1/3. So at this stage, we are looking for an active support for 1/3 minimum. If there is active support, then it will be adopted. If not, it will fail. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. Thank you for reiterating. Yes, Armenia.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I would like to thank this delegate of Cyprus, and I would like to reiterate also our request to the other members of the Intergovernmental Committee to support this amendment, not because that Armenia proposes this amendment, but for the sake of UNESCO and for the sake of ICH Convention, because the report indeed is politicized, and we would like to call on the committee
There's a
members.
point of order there
Thank you.
from Azerbaijan.
Mr. Chairman, we are already going to the debates again to this. We are in the process of adopting the decision. We are not here to listen the explanation and the support and the debates and their vision and about the amendment. So we have to proceed to the adoption of the decision as soon as possible.
Yes.
And there is already 2 members of the committee expressed explicitly their views about the decision that was adopted in beginning of this committee by you, that you will follow the procedures that was accepted by, adopted and recommended by the ad hoc working group. So please, let's follow the procedures adopted.
You made your point. Let me explain clearly. It is clear that we are not going to open the debate. This decision was taken in the morning. We are here on a point of deciding whether we should include a paragraph. And in fact, I reiterated that there should be an active support, and we have 2 members, Philippines and Palestine, expressing the opinion that in fact, we don't have the active support to include that paragraph. This is the opinion of the chair, and this is where we are actually. But be reminded that I agree that I'll ensure that we don't abuse the time of this House, of this committee, and that we don't reopen the debate. Feel reassured on that. But at this juncture, since I don't feel that we have got an active support to amend paragraph 6. We are not going to accept paragraph 6. Can we now move to paragraph 7? Paragraph 7, we have got a proposal for amendment again from Armenia.
It's now paragraph 6 again, because 6 disappears. Wait, see, watch
Yes.
the screen.
And now,
Wait, just wait.
paragraph,
Okay.
original paragraph 6 with,
It's a new paragraph 6. It's again a new paragraph 6.
is it a new paragraph 6?
Yeah,
No.
because the other one was taken, so paragraph 6 was still at paragraph 6 in a new form. Paragraph 6 in a new form. Do you understand? Look at the screen, don't look at this, because now the screen reflects the latest decisions. So this paragraph 5 is adopted, and now we have, you removed the last paragraph 6, and now we have a new paragraph 6, because 7 has become 6 again, you see? Do you understand?
No.
Okay.
We had 2 paragraphs, I understand, included in the draft. Now we have got the second one, which has been renumbered now, paragraph 6. And I wish to know what is the stand regarding this paragraph as proposed by Armenia. I don't see, again, any support, and this new paragraph also will not be included in the final document. Which means now, yes, Armenia.
I'm very sorry, Mr. Chairman. Just a clarification. You have taken out the paragraph, the new paragraph, our amendment.
Yes, yes. I believe you had two paragraphs. You hadn't.
Yes, yes. 2 new paragraphs, 6 and 7. Okay.
Now we come to the new paragraph, renumbered rather. Yes. Let us be fixed with the present situation first.
The original paragraphs. Just give us a minute and it'll be okay.
Now we come to the original paragraph 6. C'est bien ça? No, no, not ready, not ready. Please bear with us for a few seconds, please. You have on your screen paragraph 6, which starts with the word encourages. And this is the original paragraph as drafted. Is there any objection? Any comment? Adopted? Paragraph 7.
Yeah, this one doesn't make sense because the initial idea was for it to come back next year, but since that has not been accepted, it should be 4 years, which is 2021. Ask Armenia if they
Yes.
to withdraw this amendment.
Armenia, what about, do you still maintain paragraph 7? The amendment you wish to put on paragraph 7, because I understand that it is linked to previous amendments, which unfortunately we have not retained.
Exactly, Mr. Chairman. Thank you for your understanding. This was a continuation of our amendments, and after you finish, we will make explanation of our vote for the whole draft decision as it stands.
Which means that you're withdrawing this, you're not insisting.
Actually, we are not withdrawing because our amendments, this amendment is an outcome of the amendments which were proposed before.
Yes. Can I see any active support for this amendment? In that case, the original paragraph as drafted is adopted.
Take the decision as a whole. You have to the decision as a whole. You go up to the.
Now we have to take approve as a whole document 13.7B1. Armenia.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Armenia rejects this draft decision as it stands, any paragraph of it, and it as a whole. And we sadly accept that this draft decision will be accepted by Intergovernmental Committee members. So Armenia rejects, and we vote no. You can put our position as you want to. So we reject and we vote no for this draft decision. This is unacceptable for us to have this report taken note of. Thank you.
Thank you, Armenia. Yes, Azerbaijan.
Thank
Azerbaijan,
you,
you have?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. It's a very general statement. Azerbaijan thanks the committee. I think it is already adopted or not? Not yet. Okay, I will speak after the adoption of the entire. Thank you.
Okay, therefore, document 13.7b1 is adopted. Yes, Azerbaijan.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Azerbaijan thanks the committee for this decision regarding the status of the element Chogan, a traditional Karabakh horse riding game, inscribed on the urgent safeguarding list since 2013. We are pleased to see that the efforts of the communities to safeguard this traditional game have just been acknowledged by the committee, and we appreciate a lot the position of the members of the committee to this issue. The experience in preparing this report has been very important for all the major stakeholders involved in the safeguarding of Chogan in Azerbaijan, and I will will contribute to monitoring of the safeguarding process as a whole. The main community organizations linked to the element, Karabakh Horses Amateurs Association and Azerbaijani Equestrian Federation, will continue its efforts to reinforce the transmission and viability of the game and involve as widely as possible the communities concerned, and especially young people, despite the fact that the threats to the elements still persist. Azerbaijan commits to further continue the active safeguarding efforts despite these threats by supporting the transmission and promotion of the element. I thank you very much.
Yes, thank you. Now we'll have to go back. You will recall that we deferred decision regarding the chapeau also, and we will have to move back to the chapeau, and where we have got an amendment proposed by the Secretariat to add a new paragraph 13. Do we have paragraph 13, please, the new paragraph 13? Could we have it on the screen? Bear with us for a few seconds, please. Let us be clear, first of all, we are referring to which document?
Okay, chapeau decision from 1970. It's the chapeau decision covering all the reports.
We are dealing now with document 13.7b, which is a chapeau decision regarding all the reports. And we have it, and there is a proposal from the Secretariat that we should add one paragraph, paragraph 13, which I wish now to appear on the screen. Paragraph 13, please. And Netherlands, do you wish to intervene before the Secretariat, or?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chair.
Yes.
We had a question because we wanted to ask something about paragraph 8, and now we're at paragraph 13. So we wondered if we...
Yes, I believe that we should then go paragraph by paragraph. I believe that we did not do this exercise. Yes. Thank you for reminding us of it. We are going to consider draft decision 13.7b, paragraph by paragraph. The citation, paragraph 1. Any objection? Adopted. Paragraph 2, recalling the various articles of the Convention and the operational directive. No objection. Adopted. Paragraph 3, thanking all party members for submission of the report and inviting those who have not yet submitted. Yes, Armenia.
We would like to reiterate our position regarding the report on Chofkan. And we do not thank all the state parties that submitted their reports.
Yes.
With due respect to the other reporting member states. Thank you. So please...
we take note of your observation.
Much.
Thank you. Paragraph 3, adopted. Paragraph 4, adopted. Paragraph 5, adopted. Paragraph 6, adopted. Paragraph 7, adopted. Yes, paragraph 8. Netherlands, please.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. We were just wondering what the word threats refer to. Is it threats to the environment, to natural resources, and to social and economic changes? Because the word threats is a bit very general. And when this is the case, we could add this in the draft decision. Because this is a sentence which is being used in the overall report of being prepared by the Secretariat.
Yes, I believe that we should have clarification from the Secretariat on this point.
Yes, indeed. The idea of the word threats there is the broader context threats such as climate change and other threats which require working outside of just the sector of culture. I mean, issues where broader threats, be they a lot of them environmental indeed, but also demographic or so on. So that is the sense in which it's being threats to the intangible cultural heritage. That is the sense of the
okay.
decision.
Could we add the words?
Oui? Yes.
Yeah.
Yes, certainly. Yes,
then
please.
we propose to add after threats, for instance, to the environment and natural resources, comma, and to social and economic changes. Ja, dat is
You mean social and economic changes? Is that so?
And risks due to.
No.
Yes.
Voilà.
I wish to have the views on the amendment proposed by Netherlands. Zambia, please.
Yes, Mr. Chairman, thanks very much for the opportunity to speak. I was just thinking probably it would be better if we left it the way it was, because when you say threats and to seek joint efforts in strengthening, threats could be to the element itself also, and also of the element to the environment. So if you leave it generally, then it means we'll take care of threats from either side. That was my feeling. So I'd suggest we leave it the way it was.
Netherlands? Could we leave it as it is after the explanation from the Secretariat and the views of Zambia?
Yes, it's all right.
Therefore, Netherlands withdraws the amendment, and could we have it? Therefore, I take it that paragraph 8 is approved. Paragraph 9. Which emphasizes on the role of the community. Approved. Paragraph 10. Any objection? Approve. Paragraph 11. Adopted. Paragraph 12. Adopted. We come now to paragraph 13, and I wish at this juncture to request the Secretary to take the floor and to explain the purport of the new paragraph which is sought to be added. Mr. Secretary.
Thank you, Mr. Chairperson. This new paragraph is suggested and taking up language that has been used in past decisions as a general principle to be respected in the periodic reports. Thanks.
Okay. Yes, Armenia.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. We would like to thank Secretariat for the efforts and for putting this paragraph here. We'll understand quite well why this paragraph is included here, so we express our support for inclusion of this paragraph. Thank you.
Thank you, Armenia. Yes, I wish to know the position of the committee members regarding this new paragraph 13, which the Secretariat proposes to include and which has obtained the support of Armenia. Is there any objection to that? Okay. New paragraph 13 adopted. Now we come to paragraph 14. Any objection? Adopted. Therefore, we now move to adopt draft decision 13.7b with amended, which has been adopted. Do I take, yes, Armenia?
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. With due respect to all the other reports, which did not aim to make a political scene, we have to disassociate from this draft decision, and we would like our point to be taken. Thank you.
Thank you, Armenia. Therefore, with the reservation of Armenia, the draft 13.7b is duly Est-ce qu'on prend 9 là? Yes, Armenia.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. I'm very sorry, but we would like to reiterate our request to put all our reservations in the summary reports and also in the oral report of the chair, all the reservations that we had. Thank you.
We have taken good note, and the Secretary also has taken good note of that. Thank you, all members. Now we'll have to move to item 9. But before doing so, it's my pleasure now to recognize in our midst the Honorable Minister of Culture, Gender, Entertainment and Sports from Jamaica, Honorable Olivia Gange, which is with us. Welcome, Madam.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Let us now move on to item 9, issues concerning the follow-up of inscribed elements on the list of the convention. I believe this is the first time that the committee is presented with an item dedicated to the follow-up and monitoring of elements inscribed on the list of the convention. I would now please ask the Secretary to present the item to us. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chairperson. Indeed, this is a new subject matter that the Secretariat has brought to the attention of the committee. And for this reason, I would like to ask for the indulgence of the committee in advance if my presentation is a little lengthy compared to some of the other items. Let me first start by making it clear that this item does not aim to make a decision today on the establishment of a follow-up mechanism. Rather, the Secretariat wishes to launch a discussion on this subject based on the experience accumulated so far, and before going any further on the relevance of a follow-up mechanism for inscribed elements, allow me to first briefly recall that the status of inscribed elements is currently monitored through 2 existing mechanisms: periodic reporting and the guidelines on the treatment of correspondence. Periodic reporting is currently the main mechanism allowing for the regular monitoring of elements following their inscription, as presented in subchapter 4 of the operational directives. Reporting on the status of elements inscribed on the representative list is undertaken every 6 years as part of each state party's periodic report on the implementation of the convention at the national level. As for elements inscribed on the urgent safeguarding list, reporting on their status is operated every 4 years following the inscription of the element. In both cases, this reporting mechanism encourages community involvement, yet remains state-driven. Importantly, periodic reporting does not allow the possibility for communities and other concerned stakeholders to signal emerging situations in between 2 reporting cycles. In addition to the periodic reporting mechanism, the committee established in 2012 some guidelines for the treatment of correspondence from the public or other concerned parties with regards to nominations. In this regard, allow me to underline the distinction made in the guidelines between the correspondence relating to elements that are nominated for inscription on the list of the convention and that relating to elements that are already inscribed. As you might see on the screens, correspondence related to elements nominated for inscription is transmitted to the Secretariat by the Secretariat to the state concerned in the language it was received. The response of the state concerned, if any, is then communicated back to the entity that sent the correspondence through the Secretariat. Correspondence, including the letter received and the response from the submitting state, is made available to the committee and the evaluation body prior to their respective meeting. Through this mechanism, the committee has oversight through the evaluation body that it establishes every year on the assessment of the correspondence received on nominations. Concerning correspondence related to elements that are already inscribed, the mechanism functions in a different manner. When received, correspondence is transmitted by the Secretariat to the state concerned in the language it was received. Then the response of the state, if any, is forwarded to the entity that sent the correspondence. However, the guidelines do not foresee for this correspondence to be brought to the attention of the committee. In other words, when it comes to correspondence linked to inscribed elements, and unlike what is foreseen for correspondence concerning nominations, communication is only operated between the state party and the stakeholder that initially sent the correspondence through the Secretariat. No means is foreseen for the committee to be informed of such correspondence, even though it may pertain to important issues affecting the status of inscribed elements. Since the inception of the lists, the Secretariat regularly receives letters concerning nominated elements, inscribed elements, or elements of intangible cultural heritage in general. However, in the past 2 years, the number of letters received has significantly increased, with around 100 messages in the form of emails, letters received regarding the latest developments affecting the status and viability of an inscribed element. These letters concern 12 different elements inscribed on the representative list and the urgent safeguarding list, and practiced in 10 different countries. What we can observe from these 12 cases is that information pertaining to the changing status of inscribed elements can be brought to the attention of the Secretariat by a wide range of stakeholders. More than a third of the correspondence originates from the community itself that considers the element as part of its living heritage. In addition, states, media, NGOs, universities, or individuals who are outside of the community are also susceptible to alert the Secretariat on emerging situations. Furthermore, allow me to also mention that some of the letters received are anonymous, in which case they are simply registered by the Secretariat without being transmitted. Another characteristic of the correspondence recently received is the seriousness of some of the cases raised, and I do not intend to go into the specifics of any individual case, but I believe it is important to mention some examples of the types of issues described in those letters. For example, several cases relate to the introduction of policy or legislative measures leading to restriction of practice of an element by community members. At times, these initiatives appear to be in direct contradiction with the safeguarding measures described in the nomination file of the element. Lack of community involvement in the implementation of safeguarding measures is also a reason raised in several cases brought to our attention. Facts described in these letters would contradict Article 15 of the Convention as well as criteria 3 and 4 of both lists. In one case, representatives from the communities in question expressed a deep concern over the decreasing viability of their intangible cultural heritage and considered the possibility of requesting the transfer of the element from the representative list to the urgent safeguarding list. Beyond those examples, let me also mention that some messages received raise rather unusual, if not sometimes even absurd, issues. The diversity of cases would also therefore need to be taken into consideration when deciding on an appropriate way to treat such correspondence. So how have we been treating in the application of the guidelines for the treatment of correspondence from the public or other concerned parties with regard to nominations, which was adopted by the committee in 2012? The Secretariat forwarded the letters received to the competent authorities of the nomination concerned in 8 cases. In 5 of these cases, states parties provided a response that was then transmitted back to the entity that had sent the initial correspondence. In 2 instances, the exchange of correspondence led to improved collaboration between governmental authorities and communities for a joint development and implementation of safeguarding measures. However, in one case, the state party concerned seemed to confirm that recent measures did indeed restrict the enactment of the practice in contradiction to the safeguarding measures elaborated in its file. In a few cases, transmission of correspondence has led to concrete measures that could ultimately improve the viability of the element. However, in most cases, the current system for the follow-up of inscribed elements has demonstrated a limited impact. In fact, once correspondence has been received, the sole option for the Secretariat is to transmit it to the state party concerned without the possibility of commenting or informing the committee, and this despite the seriousness of the issues raised in some of these situations. These cases point to the absence of an effective mechanism allowing the committee to fulfill its mandate. Without any ways for the Secretariat to inform the committee of emerging situations, the committee remains blind to the evolving status of elements after their inscription. The risk is such that lacks will affect the credibility of the systems of the Convention, and this is the reason why the Secretariat decided to propose the inclusion of this item on the agenda. Broader considerations that might be considered include the reflection around the need for a follow-up of inscribed elements being linked to a number of broader issues that the committee may wish to take into consideration in its debates. Concerning periodic reporting, in 2017, the committee decided to reform the periodic reporting mechanism. This currently only affects the submission of reports on the status of elements inscribed on the representative list and not those on the urgent safeguarding list. Any development in the establishment of a follow-up mechanism would need to take into consideration as well the ongoing reform of the periodic report mechanism. The issue of transfer of elements between lists. A follow-up mechanism for inscribed elements could also be relevant in the context of the removal and transfer of elements. It could indeed make it possible for communities and third parties to provide information that is relevant to the assessment of the effectiveness of the safeguarding plan. This would in turn allow the evaluation body and the committee to benefit from a wide range of information and to take a fully informed decision. The reflection on the future of the listing system. Beyond the inscription process, a reflection on the nature of the listing system could include a discussion on the possible need for a follow-up mechanism for inscribed elements. Such a mechanism appears to be important to guarantee the credibility of the list and to allow the committee to properly fulfill its mandate. With these broader considerations in mind, the committee may wish to discuss the ways in which it could be informed of changing factors affecting the status of an inscribed element. The working document presented to the committee lists a number of aspects that might be considered important to determine how the committee envisages the possible establishment of a full-fledged follow-up mechanism. These are some of the key questions that we ought to ask and discuss in the reflection on the possible introduction of such a follow-up mechanism. For instance, what would be the objectives of the mechanism? Who would initiate the follow-up mechanism for a specific element and on what basis? Should correspondence be screened prior to its potential transmission to the committee? Who should be involved in the follow-up of these inscribed elements? What type of monitoring actions could the committee potentially request? What are the budgetary implications of establishing a follow-up mechanism? As I said, the establishment of the follow-up mechanism could be seen as linked to a number of the broader issues and ongoing reflections that the committee has been discussing on the Convention, such as the procedures of the removal of an element from one list and the transfer of an element from one list to the other, on the nature and purposes of the lists and the register established under the Convention, and on the relevance of the various criteria for each of these inscriptions, of these mechanisms, The draft decision 13-9 therefore proposes to integrate the reflection on the establishment of a full-fledged follow-up mechanism into this broader reflection and into the mandate of the open-ended Intergovernmental Working Group that the committee decided to convene in 2017 and that the government of Japan generously proposed to support. Thank you, Mr. Chairperson.
Thank you, Mr. Secretary. I now open the floor. Does anybody wish to intervene on this item? Philippines.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Azerbaijan. Yes, Philippines, you can start.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. This is an interesting item with bearings on the future directions of the Convention. On the one hand, it is important to monitor elements as they are living cultural expressions, which change over time. It also gives greater meaning and significance to inscription on the lists, including the transfer of elements between the lists. It also mirrors the system under the World Heritage Convention, in which inscribed sites are regularly monitored, and the committee takes action to send reactive monitoring missions, decides to include sites on the World Heritage List in danger, or even removes sites from the World Heritage List. On the other hand, there are risks of further politicization, since it would involve screening communications that could be received from a wide range of stakeholders. A different set of procedures is required to assess communications and responses of states parties. It could also require consultation and dialogue with states parties concerned. We note that not a very large number of elements have received communications. Nevertheless, it is a matter to study. We believe that the committee should be informed and have a say in the process, being the intergovernmental mechanism tasked to monitor the implementation of the Convention in accordance with Article 7. Going back to the screening of communications, perhaps the Bureau or any other body which can be will be a subject of discussion during the experts meeting to be funded by Japan could be tasked to examine communications pertaining to elements. Only in the most serious instances should the matter be elevated to the committee. Follow-up is also related to Operational Directives 39 and 40, which provided the committee can remove an element from the lists when it determines that it no longer satisfies one or more criteria for inscription on the lists. Whether accredited NGOs could play a role in this process is another issue to consider. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
May I now invite Azerbaijan?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Azerbaijan also would like to thank the Secretariat for bringing up this issue of the follow-up of inscribed elements on the lists of the Convention before we start discussing the nominations submitted for the inscription this year and for the very detailed document prepared in this regard. We believe it is indeed a very important issue, as it is already also mentioned by our distinguished delegation of Philippines. And this issue sometimes linked to the complexity of issues around ICH elements, including sensitivities between different stakeholders in the process of safeguarding after an inscription has happened. Our delegation would be in favor of careful approach on this issue. From the first look, we welcome the practice established so far with the monitoring of the elements using the reformed periodic reporting mechanism. But we would be in favor to continue the treatment of such correspondence on the basis of the guidelines for the treatment of correspondence from the public or other concerned parties with regard to nominations. We believe the committee needs to be cautious in considering the correspondence that has never been a part of the nomination file concerned as originally submitted. The original files outline and delimit the scope of elements and practitioners, as well as elements' social and cultural functions, while the committee has no evidence to confirm or to deny if the correspondence fully or partially, directly or indirectly relates to the elements inscribed. There is no monitoring mechanism within the committee to verify whether the information provided in this correspondence is true or not. Many ICH elements have sensitive issues linked to the relationship within and among the concerned communities, and the committee should be cautious in taking whatever position without a clear picture of the situation. Finally, we also know that any development in possible follow-up mechanism would imply an additional workload to the committee, Secretariat, and possibly for the evaluation body, as well as certainly financial implications. In that sense, we would like to commend the government of Japan, who generously supported this task and reflection on this issue. We would also support gaining more experience and reflection with this reform of the periodic reporting mechanism, and possibly revisiting this issue after a full 6 years reporting cycle. Thank you.
Thank you, Azerbaijan. I have on my list Cuba, Netherlands, Colombia, and Austria. I now give the floor to Cuba.
Gracias, señor presidente. Deseamos agradecer a la Secretaría por la información presentada y por traer también este tema a nuestro comité. Nos parece que es un tema de especial importancia. Todo el proceso de seguimiento a el estado de conservación y salvaguardia de los elementos inscritos en la lista de patrimonio inmaterial, pero también debemos iniciar un proceso de reflexión que nos permita mantener a salvo la credibilidad también de este comité y de la convención en sí misma. Esto es un mecanismo que podría ser muy parecido al mecanismo de monitoreo reactivo que tiene la Convención de 1972 y que hoy también acarrea problemas en este sentido por toda la politización que se da en el marco de este mecanismo. Creo entender, por lo que leo en el documento, que no es un sistema que replicaría o trataría de replicar lo que pasa en la Convención del 72, pero en todo caso llevaría un mecanismo, una reflexión profunda por los miembros del comité y también por otros miembros, los miembros de la Convención, para poder encontrar la fórmula de dar un seguimiento a estos elementos sin que politicemos nuestro comité, sin que genere un mayor problema. Todos conocemos lo que pasa en el marco de la Convención de 72 cuando tenemos que examinar los casos que están sujetos a un mecanismo de monitoreo reactivo. Quizás habría que reflexionar sobre cómo podemos profundizar dentro del informe del Estado parte preguntas específicas en aquellos estados que tengan estos tipos de problemas, porque además quizás en la Convención del 72 es muy fácil localizar el problema porque se trata de patrimonio inmueble y está en un lugar, hay medidas de salvaguardia muy específicas, pero en el patrimonio inmaterial es mucho más complejo. Una manifestación, un elemento puede tener representaciones a lo largo de todo un país y no necesariamente podemos decir que el elemento en sí mismo está en crisis porque en un lugar específico o en una comunidad puedan haber determinados problemas. Sobre todo creemos que este tiene que ser un proceso en el que el diálogo con los Estados miembros sea fundamental para poder encontrar la mejor manera de implementar nuestra convención y sobre todo, lo más importante, de salvaguardar el patrimonio inmaterial. Muchas gracias.
Thank you, Cuba. Netherlands.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. The Secretariat states clearly that information from different stakeholders on the changing situation of elements or concerns from communities about inscribed elements of ICH is at stake here. To bring these concerns on the changing status of an element to the committee, a follow-up mechanism is needed. In our view, this could be, as a starting point, as a first phase, a mechanism of mediation that is focused on mapping certain problems and finding ways to solve these problems. State parties and experts could play a role in this. This is a way to apply the ethical principles as is being referred to in item 3 of the draft decision, and in item 5, I quote, to provide ways for communities and civil society to participate more directly in the monitoring of inscribed elements, unquote. We are aware of the fact that this will be part of the broader discussion in the working group supported by Japan. Thank you.
Thank you, Netherlands. I now invite Colombia to share with us.
Gracias, presidente. Colombia apoya la propuesta de la Secretaría de iniciar una discusión y una reflexión sobre los mecanismos de seguimiento a las manifestaciones que están inscritas en las listas. Consideramos que esto no solamente puede ser una propuesta para aprovechar e incluir más a las comunidades en los seguimientos a la forma en que las manifestaciones son administradas en cada país, pero también puede dar herramientas a los países para su propia administración a nivel nacional. Consideramos que los elementos que correspondan a la Convención de 2003 o que podamos retomar de otras convenciones las discutiremos en ese momento y pues ofrecemos todo nuestro apoyo técnico para esta reflexión. Muchas gracias.
Thank you, Colombia. Can I ask Austria?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. In line with other delegations, Austria understands that the increasing number of letters of concerns regarding the status of inscribed elements demands creative solution and additional resources. And we strongly agree that communities, bearers, the civil society and NGOs should be involved in the monitoring of inscribed elements. We believe that bottom-up approaches and dialogue are the best way to move forward, and in this regard there is a need for a platform for exchange, dialogue and reflection, as the delegation of the Netherlands has emphasized before. Dear colleagues, please allow me to briefly mention also an exemplary meeting which was organized by the National Commissions of Germany, Luxembourg, Switzerland and Austria this year. Based on our individual experiences gained from the implementation of the Convention on the national level, community representatives, bearers, ICH experts, official bodies and media representatives from 4 European countries shared and discussed challenges, but also positive developments and outcomes that they have encountered before or after the inscription of elements. Issues discussed concern topics such as gender, minority rights, commercialization and animal rights. And dealing with these issues is indeed very complex and highly sensitive, but our experience has shown that a transparent and inclusive dialogue and reflection with all stakeholders involved can foster mutual respect and understanding. As the Secretariat has just presented, there are many serious questions to be reflected on concerning the follow-up of inscribed elements, which go beyond the scope of our discussions here. Thus, I would like to express our gratitude again to the government of Japan, whose generous contribution allows for a proper discussion of these sensitive and important issues on an expert level. And also we are ready to share our experience in this matter. Thank you.
Thank you, Australia. After Austria, I invite Belgium and Algeria. Belgium first.
Thank you very much. As it is the first time the Belgian delegation takes the floor, we wish to thank and congratulate Mauritius for the hospitality and excellent organization of this meeting. This item on the agenda is very interesting and important, and we do think it is high time to start discussing the follow-up of the effects of inscription of elements on the list of the convention and the safeguarding practices involved. We would like to make some comments. The first comment concerns the involvement of communities, groups and individuals, as emphasized among others in Article 15 of the Convention. We did notice the fact that in this and other documents, often only communities are mentioned, sometimes even in singular instead of the plural. It has been remarked in several previous meetings of the Intergovernmental Committee that it would best be to avoid this reductionist interpretation and to stick as closely to the basic text as possible, so to systematically mention communities, groups, and where appropriate, individuals. The second comment is about a number of steps or stages that seem to be missing before and between the reception of a letter and comment on the one hand and the possible examination by the Secretariat, the evaluation body, the Bureau, or even the Intergovernmental Committee. There is, as the delegation from the Netherlands just mentioned, a whole zone of prevention, mediation, and mitigation that can be developed in between. There are several possibilities, and the first option is to start working on the interactive online platform with ethical tools. This was already decided and requested by the Intergovernmental Committee in 2015 in the Windhoek meeting in decision 10-COM-15A. It would allow to develop and share a set of forms, documents, or procedures, like for instance the forms of prior and also sustained informed consent, as mentioned in Ethical Principle 4. This would allow to avoid a number of problems or to facilitate mediation. It would also be a way to involve NGOs and other stakeholders in finding solutions. Connected to this it would be important to find the structure of mediation. This could take the form of an ethical committee or a number of mediation committees to try and solve problems in a lighter way of solving problems. This would also allow to involve specialized mediators, NGOs and other actors without adding work to the workload of the evaluation body. So please do consider the development of lighter mediation structures using the resources and wisdom available among the many actors working in safeguarding intangible cultural heritage. And in first place, please follow up on decision 10-COM-15A, 9 and 10. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Belgium. Avant de passer la parole à Algérie, j'ai deux membres du comité qui voudraient intervenir, Arménie et Sénégal. J'invite maintenant l'Arménie.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. Just a small remarks. I would like to join distinguished representative of Austria for her comments, and I would like to add that culture, especially intangible cultural heritage, is a tool to bring about peaceful global transformations and to preserve and to pass to our future generations the unique customs, traditions, and national cultural expressions that would have otherwise disappeared. And the role of the barriers, the communities, is very crucial and important in this sense. And regarding the decision of nomination files, I would like to see improvement in screening of the nomination files, because we need more scrupulous screening of the nomination files, not to receive more negative opinions regarding it, especially whenever there are communications from public, NGOs, or from one or more states. This should serve as an alarm for the evaluating body and for the Secretariat. Thank you.
Thank you, Arménia. Maintenant, je donne la parole au Sénégal.
Merci, Monsieur le Président. La délégation du Sénégal remercie vivement le Secrétariat pour cette question importante dans la mise en œuvre de la Convention. Le mécanisme de suivi est en effet un outil d'évaluation des éléments déjà inscrits sur la liste représentative qui nous paraît essentiel. Il faudrait donc que véritablement nous puissions confier ce dossier à déjà un organe de groupe de travail pour approfondir la question. Il nous semble également important de rappeler que les communautés dépositaires du PCI ont un système interne de régulation et de gestion de l'élément et que tout mécanisme doit en tenir compte. Il est également important que le secrétariat filtre, en tout cas, ait une attention particulière sur les correspondances reçues par un filtrage adéquat. Merci beaucoup.
Merci, Sénégal. Maintenant, je donne la parole à l'Algérie.
Merci, Monsieur le Président, de nous donner la parole en tant qu'observateur. Nous souhaitions juste faire quelques remarques à ce sujet, comme nous avions pris la parole au début de la session de ce comité sur ce même sujet, l'évaluation et le suivi des éléments qui ont été inscrits. Pour nous, au-delà du fait est qu'il faudra, lors de la réunion du groupe de travail, donc open-ended, des experts qui vont plancher sur cela, nous souhaitions savoir s'il y avait la possibilité que le secrétariat, bien sûr sans rajouter à l'extrême burden de travail qu'ils ont, si on pouvait avoir un survey, un questionnaire en ligne à ce sujet. Surtout basé sur le dernier slide qui nous a été présenté des différentes questions pour pouvoir, avec les États membres, de faire un sondage d'opinion avant d'aller à cette réunion. Donc nous souhaitions savoir si cela était possible. Et aussi, nous avions une autre question. Une fois qu'on adopte des propositions sur le suivi des éléments inscrits dans la liste, est-ce qu'il y aura besoin de changer les textes régaliens de notre comité ou de la Convention. C'est-à-dire quelles seront les implications légales qui vont suivre après, parce qu'il faudra les prendre en considération au moment où nous prendrons la décision d'adopter cela. Cela étant dit, nous souhaitons juste faire aussi un commentaire concernant la manière dont ce suivi sera fait. Nous avons des propositions bien sûr, mais pour nous les communautés doivent être impliquées, et pour éviter toute forme de politisation, il faudrait peut-être limiter ça aux personnes qui sont touchées par une inscription, c'est-à-dire qui ont ou participé à l'inscription ou qui sont impliqués, donc de la communauté qui a été impliquée par l'inscription. Et enfin, concernant le suivi en lui-même, je pense que en tant que les membres du comité devraient pouvoir avoir la possibilité d'enclencher une enquête sur le terrain pour savoir quel est le degré de dommage qui a été fait ou qui est en train de se faire à un élément qui est inscrit, et ces enquêtes-là pourraient être faites par, qu'on pourrait mandater peut-être les instituts de catégorie 2 ou les facilitateurs ou une autre partie, mais nous pensons sincèrement qu'une enquête sur le terrain pourrait être une bonne solution à cela. Je vous remercie, Monsieur le Président.
Merci beaucoup, l'Algérie. Et avant de prendre le vote, je voudrais demander au secrétariat de nous éclairer surtout sur les quelques points soulevés par l'Algérie.
Thank you, Mr. Chairperson, and I'd like to thank all the delegates who intervened, indeed raising multiple issues which show the complexity of the issue at hand. And I reiterate that the purpose here is to initiate a discussion which I think will require several steps and multiple consultations, as has been mentioned. I heard a few mentions of the question of screening because of the diversity of kinds of issues. Ideas like informal mediation, the need to be cautious, the need to have people or communities, groups, and in some cases individuals fully involved when they are those who are related to the nomination. I also heard the comments from the Honorable Delegate of Cuba, which indeed seem highly pertinent. We should probably not, in fact, approach monitoring of ICH in the same way one approaches monitorings of sites and monuments, because the implications are very different. I would say we are looking to get ideas, and again, we thank the government of Japan for making it possible to reflect on this. Electronic surveys could be one means, incorporating also into other discussions would be another one. But we take what we take from this, it is indeed worth to continue this reflection and this discussion, but although we are not going to, at this very, very early stage, come out with any specific suggestions. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Secretary. I'll now move to adopt draft decision 13-9. Does it appear on the screen? And we proceed paragraph by paragraph. Paragraph 1, the citation of the document. Any objection? Adopted. Paragraph 2, reference to the Philippines, please.
Thank you, Mr. Chairperson. We have a small amendment to this paragraph at the beginning, recalling Article 7 of the Convention, comma. Article 7 of the Convention talks about the functions of the Intergovernmental Committee, and we believe it should be the locus of any monitoring if we so decide. Thank you.
Thank you, Philippine. I wish to have the views of members. Any objection to this inclusion about Article 7, which I believe is very pertinent and precise to the point? If there is no objection, amendment proposed is adopted. Therefore, we adopt paragraph 2 as amended. Paragraph 3. Any objection? Adopted. Paragraph 4. Adopted. Paragraph 5 for the follow-up mechanism. Philippine, yes.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairperson. On this paragraph, we note that it may be construed to preempt or prejudge the discussions we are still to have, since it says the need already to strengthen and to provide ways. But I think from our just recently concluded discussion, it's clear that there are many suggestions, but no real answers yet, and we still have to go through this process. So we would suggest to slightly amend the language in 5, and instead of to replace to strengthen with to reflect on. And then also to delete to provide. And also to delete more directly. So this, I think, would reflect the reflection. So thank you, Mr. Chairperson.
Thank you. I believe Azerbaijan has something to say on that.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Azerbaijan would like to support the proposal made by Philippines. It entirely reflects the spirit of our discussions. Thank you.
Let us hear Cuba. What are the views of Cuba?
Gracias, señor presidente. También apoyamos la propuesta de Filipinas y en relación a la propuesta de Países Bajos y de Austria, nos parecía que empezar a abrir la lista ahora de posibles implicados puede ser más complicado, porque también tendríamos a los centros de investigación, podríamos tener a las universidades, podríamos tener otros expertos que no sean necesariamente vinculados a los estados y comenzaríamos ya el debate. Quizás los proponentes pueden compartir nuestro punto de vista. Sería mejor dejarlo en comunidades o dejarlo simplemente para el seguimiento de los elementos inscritos, y este deberá ser un elemento que guíe el debate, porque la lista podría ser interminable, porque nosotros también tendríamos interés en proponer otros actores que podrían ser fundamental en esta participación. Muchas gracias.
Let us hear Sénégal.
Merci, Monsieur le Président. Le Sénégal voudrait soutenir fortement ce paragraphe en encourageant un mécanisme inclusif et participatif de suivi des communautés. C'est extrêmement important. Donc nous souhaiterions vraiment que cet élément-là soit bien en vue à ce niveau-là. Merci.
Merci. Palestine.
Merci, Monsieur le Président. Vous remarquez que pendant le débat, je n'ai pas pris la parole parce que tout le monde est d'accord qu'une réflexion doit être menée. Et on est effectivement d'accord. Moi, j'avais une remarque effectivement sur la proposition de Netherlands and Austria qui va dans le même sens de Cuba. Tout d'abord, je soutiens aussi la proposition de Philippines. Vous pouvez ajouter la Palestine là-dessus. Par contre, effectivement, je suis d'accord avec notre collègue de Cuba. Si on doit citer tous les parties concernées, on n'en finira pas. Et puis, pourquoi limiter les choses? Donc, ou bien on garde ways for communities and concerned stakeholders or other concerned parties, ou bien on le biffe complètement. Simplement, on met communities, simplement. Aller commencer à dire les groupes, les individus et je ne sais quoi, on s'en sortira pas. Communities, c'est compris aussi généralement parmi les membres et les experts. Des fois, les communities pourraient être des groupes, pourraient être des individus, etc. Donc, soit on laisse communities, ou si on veut, on met and concerned parties. Merci, Monsieur le Président.
La Colombie.
Gracias, señor presidente. Colombia soporta la propuesta de Filipinas y quisiéramos también sumarnos a la propuesta de Cuba, que hablemos de las comunidades y los demás stakeholders y lo dejemos así porque en cada caso y en cada país el tema de las personas, las comunidades o los entes involucrados con las manifestaciones dependen de cada caso. Y hablar de comunidades y stakeholders cubre todos los posibles participantes. Muchas gracias.
Poland.
Thank you, Chair. We would like to support the amendment proposed by Netherlands and Austria. By this, we stick to the language of the Convention, having this amendment inside. Thank you.
Armeni.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. As previously said, we give our full support to Austria, and in this case, Austria and Netherlands inclusion, and also Palestine included other concerned parties, or no, I'm sorry, Palestine said other concerned stakeholders or other concerned parties to have as wide coverage as possible, because when we are talking about ICH elements, it's really people, the actual barriers who are concerned. Thank you.
Jamaica.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Jamaica also adds its support to the amendments proposed by Cuba, Palestine, and the other state parties reflected in number 5. Thank you.
We see that there are 4 supporting and about...
In fact, we have got 2 amendments proposed. One is to reflect instead of reinforcing, and I believe that everybody is agreeable on that. And the second one is whether we should limit ourselves to communities or whether we should extend it outside communities. This is where, yes, Austria.
Thank you, Chair. Just to clarify, the only reason we brought it in was to stick to the language of the convention, as already it was mentioned also by the delegation of Belgium. So we did not want to add up, but just to stick to the standard language. Thank you.
Okay, thank you for this. Thank you for this clarification. I see Djibouti.
Merci, Monsieur le Président. Ce document est très important dans le suivi, comme déjà les interventions précédentes ont bien souligné. Je voudrais intervenir au point 5 pour qu'on puisse ajouter, outre les communautés de la société civile, les praticiens ainsi que les détenteurs. Merci.
Now I take it that Djibouti is proposing that instead of communities, we try to be more precise by stating practitioners and bearers. At least here, we are not extending it too much, and we know specifically whom we are targeting on that score. Let me first, I give the floor to the Secretary.
Thank you, Mr. Chairperson. I think we've come again to the question of what are communities, which is something that is, whilst never having been specifically defined in the Convention, is something that has constantly been used to as referred. And it is generally understood, for example, that communities includes practitioners and bearers. Communities are practitioners and bearers. And throughout the nomination files, practitioners and bearers are the communities that are identified. And it is true that in the operational directives, the language of communities, groups, and in cases individuals is the language that has been used up until now. And it is a way of understanding who these practitioners and bearers are, or various others. So the standard practice in the Convention has been to use communities, groups, and individuals, at least in the operational directives. And that has been in practice for a number of years, particularly since TENCOM. But so, if with the kind understanding of Djibouti, I think we can definitely consider that practitioners and bearers is what communities means. That is the practice of the Convention. As to whether we keep using, as in line with the decision at the TENCOM, communities, groups, and individuals, it is indeed the language that has been used since then, but that is for the committee to decide how it wishes to use it in this case. Thank you.
Palestine wanted to intervene and to come to...
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Actually, I wanted just to mention the same thing that Mr. Curtis has mentioned about practitioners and bearers. And second thing, actually, communities, groups, and individuals also, as mentioned, it is the language of the operational guideline. So it's up to us to use what language we would like here. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Cuba.
Gracias, señor presidente. También vemos con un poco de preocupación que no estaríamos limitando un poco este párrafo, porque la necesidad de la reflexión no es solo para abrir una manera, un camino para que las comunidades, individuos puedan trabajar y contribuir. O sea, también esta reflexión nos lleva a mejorar las medidas de salvaguardia, a mejorar la gestión. O sea, no podemos limitar que esta reflexión solamente va a ir encaminada a mejorar y a ofrecer a las comunidades e individuos un camino mucho más expedito para participar. O sea, la participación es un poco más amplia y también el sentido de la reflexión tiene que también ser mucho más amplio, pero en todo caso facilitaremos su lectura de la sala y nos iremos junto al consenso.
Libanon.
Merci, Monsieur le Président. Nous soutenons la proposition des Philippines pour ce qui est de réfléchir au suivi des éléments, mais aussi nous sommes pour utiliser le vocabulaire de la Convention, c'est-à-dire les communautés, les groupes et, le cas échéant, les individus.
Le Liban, China.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. My delegation would like to echo the proposal by Palestine and Colombia to add other concerned stakeholders after communities, and at the same time, we would like to suggest to delete the civil society, because we would like to, when we mention the other concerned stakeholders, we just will include may include the civil society as well. And having said that, we just keep this decision wording as simple and precise. Thank you.
Thank you, China. Philippines.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And we listened very closely to all the suggestions, and we have the kind of compromise proposal similar to the last two speakers, Lebanon, that said that we should track the language of the convention, also the operational directives, and also China, which mentioned that civil society isn't, let's say, mentioned in the operational directives and the relevant Article 1 of the convention, for instance. So our proposal is, to cut it short, let's use the language in Operational Directive 16. At the end of that operational directive, the phrase is concerned communities, groups, and if applicable, individuals. And this might bring everybody to some consensus. This would be a proposal. Again, it would be to use Operational Directive 16, and the phrasing is concerned communities, comma, groups, and if applicable, individuals, then to participate in the mod.
Poland.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I think that after having heard what has been spoken by Secretariat, I would be very much in favor to not only to make more simply our language, but more directly stick to the language of convention. And so now I see that we are going to create somehow new definitions, like adding, for example, practitioners and bearers. So it's included, in fact, in communities, like has been said. So I'd be very much in favor to be with the language formed before. It means communities, groups, and applicable individuals. So extending of this language would be somehow be understood or misunderstood, I should say. Thank you.
Thank you. I'll pass over the Secretary.
I just want to, in fact, realize that I mentioned earlier that it was in the operational directives, if not in the convention. It is actually in the text of the convention itself under Article 15, which is, as I read it, communities, groups, and where appropriate, individuals that create, maintain, and transmit such heritage. There have been many debates, and we could perhaps save time by going straight to the language of the convention. These have been debated before, with the kind permission of the room. The question, if I may, I think as the amendment of the Philippines, the question is whether to retain other concerned stakeholders, and I think if that question is resolved, this paragraph is close to.
Sénégal, yes.
Monsieur le Président, donc j'avais souhaité intervenir depuis un moment. C'était juste pour appuyer fortement la déclaration de M. Curtis, secrétaire de la Convention, qui a utilisé effectivement le langage de la Convention parce que communauté est beaucoup plus englobante et donc appropriée à ce niveau-là. C'est ce que je voulais juste ajouter. Merci.
Have we included what appears to be a consensus among members that we should adhere to the language of the convention? Do we have it now? C'est okay. Yes, Philippine?
Yeah. Yes, Mr. Chair, we can go along with the suggestion to track convention or operational directives language. When we suggested to use the language in Operational Directive 16, it was to precisely deal with a concerned, because that operational directive uses concerned communities. And I think this could be a useful way to address all the concerns. So ways for concerned communities, groups, and where applicable, or if applicable, individuals. And to delete the rest. Delete other concerned stakeholders, delete civil society there. But on the understanding that we're tracking what is in the convention and the operational directives. Thank you.
We have, I believe, quite lengthily debated on that. May I suggest that we follow the guidance of Philippines on that score when we move on that score?
Just to have a look, if I may.
Let us first incorporate what Filipino stated, and then we see if Palestine want. Okay. Yes, Palestine.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. It's in the same sense. I'm taking the floor to ask the Secretariat kindly if they can clean up the paragraph in order to read it clearly, and then we will decide. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Yes. Palestine, you want to, yes.
Yes, Mr. Chair, just a technical issue. Could it be possible to erase all the red things that had been added and keep only the last proposal of Philippine in order to be able to read the paragraph and, if needed, to amend it, if not, to adopt it? Just to delete everything in red and add the word concerned, proposed by Philippine, delete the civil society, and delete everything in red. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Yes, yes, Secretary.
Yeah, I think we have to be a little bit careful because we have the earlier things were about strengthening and so on. So just please, just bear with us for a minute. If you want, why don't we at first delete the names or hide the names of the countries, which confuses things. So we will hide the names of the countries. Yeah, okay. Because it's the number of names of countries that is now confusing things, I think. So if you allow us, there will be another paragraph temporarily pasted below without the names of the countries, which will allow for a clearer reading of the sentence. Yeah, so if... Oh,
yes, Mr. Curtis, please.
So let's look, we're working on the English, and the French will fix later, with your permission, just to get this right. In that sense, if we understand correctly, it would be, the new paragraph would read, recognizes the need to reflect on the follow-up of inscribed elements and ways for concerned communities, groups, and where applicable individuals to participate in the monitoring of inscribed elements.
Netherlands.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. When you use the word concerned, that's not standard language of the convention. And what you do then is saying that it's only these communities, the concerned communities, who can participate and not other communities, if I am correct. And so you are narrow it down, the phrase of communities, groups, and individuals.
Yes, Netherlands? No, Austria.
Yeah, in line with what has just been said, and I don't want to extend this discussion, but now we are We redefine the whole communities, groups, and individuals to other stakeholders that will be involved in this monitoring, because it's not only the communities that are concerned with the element, but it's also academia, it's also other communities. So actually we would prefer to keep the amendment by our delegation of China made to include all other stakeholders, so that we don't redefine the communities, groups, and individuals. Thank you.
Palestine?
Well, actually, it was the same proposal, which is my initial proposal. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Can we take this into consideration now after the observations made? Yes, Poland.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Austria just expressed our wondering concerning stakeholders. I would leave it because it's very important, because we have to include, for example, like we just said, scientific milieu and others very much interested in supporting of the safeguarding of the elements. So it's very important. So I would stay with this wording, other stakeholders. Thank you.
We listen to Philippine, but I believe that we have more or less agreed on the final format. Let us hear Philippine.
Yes, Mr. Chairperson, we just wanted to explain that we were under the understanding that we would track the language of the convention and the operational directives, and other stakeholders is not included in the relevant article or the operational directive. However, if the committee feels that we want to expand, we were not going to oppose it, but we just wanted to say that the reason why we made our amendments is because the idea was to track what's in what has already been agreed. We want to point out that other stakeholders is not in the convention and not in the operational directives. Thank you.
I believe that we should use a harmonized language, and as far as possible, we try to stick to the convention and what is included there. But can I ask Mr. Curtis to just give us some insight?
Perhaps I'd just allow myself to make a suggestion that might help. If instead of other stakeholders, we would say on the follow-up of inscribed elements and ways for concerned communities, recognizes the need to reflect on the follow-up of inscribed elements and ways for concerned communities, groups, and where applicable, and ways in particular, because if you had ways in particular, the idea is to put the particularity, the emphasis on concerned communities, groups, and individuals, rather than the exclusivity on them. It gets confusing because of groups and where applicable individuals. So, but if you were saying that recognizes the need to reflect on the follow-up of inscribed elements and ways, and in particular, and that doesn't make it exclusive, and in particular, ways for, and in particular, no, yes, ways for comes after in particular. And take out and other stakeholders. So, meaning that there is an emphasis on concerned communities, groups, and where applicable individuals, but it is not an exclusive, it is not exclusively on them. Is that a proposal that would work?
Do we agree? Yes. There's consensus, Palestine?
sorry, Mr. Chair, but I think that the language becomes confusing because we're saying recognizes the need to reflect on the follow-up of inscribed elements, and in particular as if we are talking for the need, and in particular ways as if the need was the particular need for the ways for concerned party to participate in the monitoring. I think it is a question of language. It's confusing here. I'm sorry. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
So in that case, are we back to the suggestion of Philippines?
No, Philippines didn't want. We go back to all other stakeholders. Netherlands.
With all, we include all of the stakeholders as suggested by Poland, Netherlands.
I just wanted to add that I thought that the suggestion by the Secretariat was correct if you put in particular right in front of for concerned, so not in front of ways, because I agree with the Palestinian colleague that it would refer to the ways when you put it in front of ways. But as I understood it, you could say recognizes the need to reflect on the follow-up of inscribed elements and ways, in particular for concerned communities, groups, and where applicable individuals, to participate in the monitoring of inscribed elements. Thank you.
Yes. Philippines? Philippines and Poland who want to...
We can support what the Netherlands just read out, but I think she didn't put in the... she put the in particular above, and then the other stakeholders would somehow incorporate it in her formulation without... I mean, we're not going to stick on this, but we support what she just read out. Thank you.
Poland?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. If you are speaking about the language used by convention, I would like to remind you that in our overall results framework, just adopted, and we can find it in our textbook, in our basic text, is used exactly this formula, including for groups, communities, groups, and individuals, and other stakeholders for safeguarding intangible cultural heritage. So we don't, in fact, create something new. We just repeat what just been adopted. So please, I would be very much in line to stay with this previous version when the stakeholders, they are just in the text of this paragraph. Thank you.
Yes, Mr. Curtis.
So if I understand correctly, what's being proposed now is we return and other stakeholders, but we take out in particular. Exactly, okay.
Yes, sir.
Okay, good, that's good.
Philippines?
We have no problem now. It's fine.
Okay.
It's fine because
Okay.
just to move forward,
Okay,
and we understand that. But we just want to say that because we were trying to track the language of the particular part in the convention where we're defining communities, and we thank the distinguished delegate of Poland for bringing into our reflection that it's also, of course, in other parts of the operational directive. So we've
We
heard...
remove particular and we
have no issue with it, actually. It was just that to be consistent,
Already.
actually. Thank you.
Are we agreeable now to the text in red? Okay. Therefore, we have it adopted. We move to paragraph 6. No objection. Adopted. Paragraph 7. Adopted. Now we agree to adopt decision 13-9 as amended. Adopted. Dear members, yesterday the committee adopted decision 13-10B41 for the joint inscription of traditional Korean wrestling Serum on the representative list. Allow me once again to thank you all for the spirit of cooperation that made this historic inscription possible. It is now time for us to resume our examination of item 10, report of the evaluation body on its work in 2018, which will retain our attention for some time. Before starting, allow me to also take this opportunity to mention the generous contribution of Sultan bin Abdulaziz Al Saud Foundation of the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia in support of Arabic interpretation during the examination of nominations, proposals, and requests until Friday morning. I now invite the chairperson of the evaluation body, Mr. John Moge Omare, representing Kenya, its vice chairperson, Evin Falk, representing the Norwegian Crafts Institute, and its rapporteur, Eva Kuminikova, representing Czech Ethnological Society, to join us at the podium. I wish to remind you that the committee established the evaluation body at its 12th session in Jeju, Republic of Korea, in order to evaluate the nomination to the list of intangible cultural heritage in need of urgent safeguarding, the nominations of the representative list of the intangible cultural heritage of humanity, the proposal to the register of good safeguarding practices, and the request for international assistance greater than 100,000 USD. Let me explain how we will deal with items on the agenda concerning the report of the evaluation body that also includes 4 sub-items. We will begin with item 10, the overall report of the evaluation body on its work, as follows. Ms. Kumikova will present an oral report on a number of cross-cutting and specific issues raised during the body's work on 4 mechanisms, namely the urgent safeguarding list, the representative list, the register of good safeguarding practices, and international assistance. Following the oral report, I will open the floor for specific questions that committee members may wish to address to the evaluation body. I would ask you at that stage to restrict your intervention to questions to the evaluation body concerning issues raised in its reports. Our general debate on this item will take place after we have evaluated all individual files, at which point we will move to the adoption of the overall decision 13-10. Do you have any comment or question on the order of examination of nomination in the debate? If you have no question on the order of the examination of nominations and the debate, let me mention that the committee is now asked to examine nominations to the urgent safeguarding list, item 10A, nomination to the representative list, item 10B, proposal to the register of good safeguarding practices, item 10C, and request for international assistance greater than 100,000 US dollars, item 10D. All nominations, requests, and proposals will be the subject of a brief presentation by the chairperson of the evaluation body, who will give us a succinct explanation justifying the draft decision of the body, along with a display of photographic materials on the screens. Concerning nominations that have been recommended for referral, allow me to recall that in conformity with Decision 9-13C in 2014, the evaluation body recommended to refer a file only in the case of information lacking in a nomination whether it be a technical or substantial nature. Depending on its own priorities, the submitting state may wish to resubmit the referred file during the immediate following cycle or during another future cycle. This is the reason why each decision for referral states that submitting states are invited to resubmit the nomination to the committee for examination during a following cycle. In any case, files referred and later resubmitted are considered as new nominations and therefore are subject to the overall sealing of files and the priority system described under paragraph 34 of the operational directives. Concerning the debate of the committee on the files, I wish to underline that a heavy task is ahead of us, with 46 files remaining to be examined over the course of 15 hours. Due to this tight schedule and in order to allow sufficient time for the committee to discuss specific files, the Bureau agreed during the meeting on 2nd October to adopt the same procedure as in previous years and to invite committee members wishing to discuss or amend specific draft decision on nomination to inform the Secretariat by today, 9 a.m. In this regard, a message was sent by the Secretariat to all committee members on 15th November to inform them of this working method. This is merely a matter of organization. I wish to reassure members of the committee that this procedure does not prevent any committee member from taking the floor on any decision if it so wishes during the current item. The Secretariat informed me that it received requests for debate by committee members concerning 2 nominations to the urgent safeguarding list and 6 nominations to the representative list. It also informed me that 2 files have been withdrawn by the committee, by the submitting state concerned. Allow me now to explain the working method. I wish to apply for the adoption of draft decision in principle. We will adopt draft decision for which amendments were submitted paragraph by paragraph. For other decisions, we could expect to adopt them as a whole. In either case, the submitting state will have 2 minutes for comments after adoption as customary. I hope that we can, in this way, save time and conduct our discussion in an optimal manner. Another aspect that I want to clarify is how I intend to proceed with amendments to the draft decisions on nominations. In particular, in light of decision 11-8, the committee took in 2016 regarding the clarification on the decision-making process concerning inscription, selection, or approval of nomination, proposals and requests, as well as the discussions of the informal ad hoc working group held in the past 2 years. As members of the committee are well aware, our decision-making process has been the subject of numerous decisions during the meetings of the informal ad hoc working group since its creation in 2016. While the work of the informal ad hoc working group is ongoing, and its report will in fact be discussed under item 16 of our agenda, it is important for me to acknowledge its debates. That being said, item 16 will be the opportunity for us to fully debate around these ideas. Taking into consideration the outcomes of these meetings as presented in the report of the co-chairs of the open-ended informal ad hoc working group of the committee, Annex document ITH 18/13-16, I would like to apply the following working method as a way forward for the present examination of nominations, requests, and proposals under item 10. In accordance with paragraph 14 of the Rules of Procedure of the committee, my duty as chairperson is the smooth conduct of the proceedings and the maintenance of order. This will constitute my main line of action during our debates. As reflected in Decision 11-8, we adopted in 2016, the spirit of consensus is the one that should prevail in our debate. I believe it would also be in order to remind ourselves that the draft decision proposed to us have been prepared by the evaluation body, a consultative body created to assist us in our examination of nominations. Because we know that we do not have the time to go thoroughly through each nomination file. We elect its members, we then propose its candidates. Therefore, our debates and our decisions-making process shall demonstrate respect towards the expertise and diligent work of the evaluation body. In conformity with the decision made last year and in spirit of consensus that prevails in the work of UNESCO's governing bodies, when amendments are put forward, I will seek to establish consensus through appreciating both supporting arguments and objection to those amendments under consideration. To this end, when an amendment is proposed, I will first determine whether it receives an active relative support from the committee. This means that I will be looking for the expression of support from at least 1/3 of the committee members. If I deem it necessary, for instance, in the case of an objection by a committee member to an amendment, I would then seek the active, broad support from the majority of committee members. This aspect of the conduct of our debate is of prime importance to me. In this regard, allow me to emphasize that our decision-making process has an impact on the credibility of not only the work of this committee, but also by inference of the convention as a whole. It is therefore our duty and our responsibility as members of the committee to keep these considerations in mind throughout our debates. Do we have any comment or questions regarding the procedure for the proposed examination of the files? I see none. Dear colleague, I wish now to recall several other important points about the procedure of our debates, which are the working method adopted by the committee that I can kindly ask you to respect. During the general debates, priority is given to members of the committee, but I will also give the floor to state parties, non-members of the committee, and other observers if time allows. During the debates on draft decision concerning specific nominations, proposals, and requests, participation in the debate is limited to committee members. Let me also recall Rule 22.4 of the Rules of Procedure. Submitting states whether or not a member of the committee shall not speak to advocate the inclusion of the file, but only to provide information in reply to questions raised by committee members, if any. I remind members and observers that there are a large number of people following our work back home through audiocast and videocast or through the news media. And it is therefore important for us to keep as closely as possible to our schedule. Do you have any question on the procedure for the debates or the documents? I see none. I would like now to give the floor to the rapporteur of the evaluation body, Ms. Kuminikova.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
The floor is yours.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Mr. Chairman, distinguished delegates, ladies and gentlemen, I would like to introduce to you, on behalf of the evaluation body, its final report, which consists of 5 parts. Can we see the presentation? Not yet. Right.
Firstly, it is the document ITH 1813-10, the report of the evaluation body on its work in 2018. Other 4 documents related to each of the international mechanisms of the Convention, the representative list, the urgent safeguarding list, the register of good safeguarding practices and international assistance, are included in documents numbers 10A, 10B, 10C, and 10D, and they will be presented to you by the chairman of the evaluation body, Mr. John O'Mara. Next slide, please. In this cycle, 50 files have been treated and have been submitted to the evaluation body for its recommendation, including 6 multinational nominations. 1 file concerns an inscription on an extended basis. 8 files have been resubmitted after being referred or not inscribed in a previous cycle. The largest proportion, 80%, concerns nominations to the representative list, 14% nominations to the urgent safeguarding list, 4%, that is 2 files, are proposals to the register of good safeguarding practices, and a single international assistance request was submitted for this cycle. Out of the 50 files examined by the evaluation body, a total of 35 files are recommended for inscription, selection or approval. 12 files are recommended for referral, and 3 files are not recommended for inscription, selection or approval, as you can see in the graph. The 12 members of the evaluation body met 3 times in March, June and September. Each member studied every file, which gave us a complete overview and allowed us to treat all files consistently. Because only 1/4 of members is replaced each year, evaluation body members also benefited from the experience gained in previous cycles, often recalling body's former recommendations and past decisions of the committee. After submitting their individual assessments online, members of evaluation body met in June to discuss all files together. The common evaluation of each file usually started with a diversity of opinions, but through intensive debates, all 12 members of the body had to reach a consensus, which is presented to the committee in this report. The composition of the body respects equitable geographic distribution, allowing its debates to benefit from a wide range of expertise. Although the report was drafted by the rapporteur, all members of the body participated in its elaboration, and the documents submitted are results of an intensive collaborative process and common work. The evaluation body strictly adhered to the principle of exclusively evaluating the information and facts contained in the files that were submitted in a timely manner and their compliance with the criteria, not making any assumptions about information that the state party had not explicitly articulated. When the information needed to assess whether or not the file met a certain criterion was lacking, the body recommended the referral option. Having in mind that referring a file often causes disappointment on the part of the state party and particularly among the communities concerned, the body wishes to reiterate that the referral option is not a negative assessment of a file. It rather allows the state party to revisit the file and improve its quality so as to fully reflect the principles of the Convention, serve the purposes of the lists or the register, and cast good light on the work of the state parties and the committee. In 2017, the evaluation body used a dual system of draft decisions with 2 options on an exceptional basis for criterion U5 and R5. This was applied in cases where a nomination would be recommended for a referral only because factual information related to the inclusion of the element in an inventory was lacking. This year, for the first time, the body evaluated nomination files benefiting from the new ICH 01 and ICH 02 nomination forms, in which Section 5 has been broken down into several subsections. It noted substantial improvements in the way submitting states provided information compared with previous cycles. However, some files still lacked mandatory information, particularly concerning periodicity and modality of inventory updating. If most of the information required and an inventory extract were provided, the body evaluated criterion U5R5 positively, despite the fact that certain aforementioned information was missing. Whenever it applied this approach in the draft decision, the body suggested that the committee requests that the state party clearly provides the information concerned in its periodic report. As a result of this approach, no nomination was recommended for a referral on the basis of criterion U5 or R5 alone in this cycle. This is why the evaluation body did not consider it to be necessary in this cycle to use a dual system of draft decisions with two options. In this cycle, the evaluation body noted again that some states parties found it particularly challenging to answer the questions under criterion R2, and that the purpose of this criterion is still not clear even to experienced submitting states. When trying to identify the reasons, the body came to a conclusion that while under all other criteria the state party is asked to justify the inscription of an element from the community perspective and in specific terms, in R2 an external and abstracted point of view is expected. Instead of explaining how the inscription can promote the intangible cultural heritage in general and raise awareness of ICH outside the community of its practitioners, large proportion of nomination files tend to address the impact of the inscription on the element itself and within its community. The body devoted a lengthy discussion to this issue and acknowledged that the criterion is directly related to the purpose of the representative list and therefore it is highly relevant and important. For these reasons, the body welcomes and encourages the reflection on the nature of the lists and the relevance of the criteria for each of them, particularly in relation to criterion R2. Now let us look at selected cross-cutting issues which have been reappearing most often or which have raised particularly serious discussions among body members. In civil cases, the states parties attempted to claim or justify ownership of an element, mostly in sections corresponding to criteria R1, U1 or R2. The body also noted that even the titles of nominated elements sometimes imply claims of ownership. In such cases, the Secretariat was asked to propose a modification of a title to the submitting country, not to inadvertently provoke sentiments contrary to the Convention's principle of mutual respect and international cooperation. To be specific, for instance, where formulating a title, it is generally advisable to identify elements as being practiced in a country rather than being of a country. As in previous cycles, some nominations showed poor language quality, with many typographical errors and inconsistencies. Considering that the quality of writing does affect the understanding of the element by the evaluation body and the committee, and since nomination files are made public and serve to promote the convention, it is important that the states parties ensure clear and coherent written expression in the files and pay particular attention to their correct translations. States parties are also repeatedly reminded not to use expressions implying the immutability, excellence, or uniqueness of elements. Those most frequently employed include expressions like authenticity, unique, original, or extraordinary. Such expressions may imply externally imposed hierarchy of elements, while the Convention encourages us to value all expressions equally. That is why they should be avoided. In civil cases this year, states parties also proposed safeguarding measures aimed at protecting authenticity of an element or ensuring that the element will be conserved and will not change in the future. Such approach is contrary to the definition of intangible cultural heritage and goals of the Convention, which emphasizes living, dynamic, and ever-changing nature of ICH, recreating to the needs and preferences of the practitioners. The evaluation body encountered difficulties with nominations of generally well-known elements referring to different concepts which were not known to the body members and which were not explained in the file. The description of an element should be written in such a way that even someone who has no prior knowledge of it would understand its nature. Due to the word limit, the states parties also tend to use acronyms, which is understandable. However, they should always first clarify what these stand for and not expect that the reader will be automatically familiar with them. The evaluation body was pleased to examine 6 multinational nominations in the 2018 cycle. At the same time, it felt that the potential for multinational files is still largely untapped and therefore wishes to encourage state parties to do their utmost in considering the submission of multinational nominations in the future. Yesterday, both Koreas set a very good example of this practice. Preparing a joint nomination always requires a lot of coordination and harmonizing different priorities and individual needs of each country. Sometimes these efforts are very successful and demonstrate very well the principles of international cooperation. However, sometimes collaboration between the submitting states seems rather formal and does not reflect upstream joint efforts. The body also noted that in some cases the amount and quality of information from each country involved in a multinational nomination process differ, and that deficiencies in one country's contribution can hinder the entire nomination and cause disappointment among all the other countries and communities. The states parties should therefore strive to submit balanced files. With so many communities at stake, it can be very difficult to ensure their active and wide involvement in the multinational collaborative nomination process. Nevertheless, the involvement of communities, particularly in the planning and implementation of the safeguarding measures, must be in these cases treated with even greater care and attention. Evaluation body debated several thematic issues, out of which I will mention only the most discussed ones. The body noticed an increasing number of nominations related to sports and discussed the boundary between traditional sports and games and their professional forms. The body was particularly concerned when a state party focused on explaining their rules and system of organization instead of concentrating on their value as cultural practices and on the community roles. As community-based practices with a clear cultural meaning, constantly recreated and transmitted across generations, traditional sports and games can be considered as expressions of intangible cultural heritage. However, when they become strongly professionalized, it can undermine their status as ICH. The evaluation body was pleased to see that the states parties are aware of close linkages between intangible cultural heritage and its tangible environment, and they decide to safeguard living traditions complementarily with the protection of World Heritage sites associated with them. Unfortunately, in some cases, the safeguarding plans prioritized protection of tangible heritage before the intangible and did not take into consideration that the 2003 Convention applies a different approach and different criteria from the 1972 World Heritage Convention. During the evaluation process, several serious issues linked to the commercialization of intangible cultural heritage arose, mostly in relation to its promotion. The evaluation body expressed concerns when the promotion of tourism and commercialization were considered as key objectives of the safeguarding plans. Although sustainable tourism can be an important source of income for the custodians, viewing the inscription of an element as a tool for attracting more tourists or for creating a leisure park demonstrates a lack of understanding of the principles of the Convention and of the objective of its lists. If negative impacts following an inscription are foreseen, a monitoring mechanism should be designed that will allow the community to take appropriate measures when excessive numbers of tourists start negatively influencing the practice. It is encouraging that several nominations did include proposals of such monitoring mechanisms. Some elements, particularly knowledge and skills associated with traditional crafts can have a strong commercial aspect, which is generally not unusual or necessarily undesirable when the commercialization of crafts provides their practitioners with permanent source of income and hence creates sustainability. However, nominations should not concentrate primarily on the commercial aspects of elements, particularly in terms of safeguarding measures. Rather, they should highlight their social and cultural roles and features. The inscription should also not be seen as an excellence label granted by the UNESCO, which would help to promote the products. Again, in several cases, the purposes of the 2003 Convention seem to be confused with other standard-setting instruments of UNESCO in field of culture, particularly in terms of economic significance of nominated elements. Another major and recurrent issue has been the community involvement and consent. First and foremost, the communities and practitioners identified in each section of the nomination file should be coherent, which means that the communities identified in section C should also be those involved in safeguarding and those expressing consent with the inscription. The states parties should also bear in mind that criteria U3R3 and U4R4 both expect detailed description of community participation, however, each of them in different context and from a different perspective. Still, they are both equally important. As far as criterion U3R3 and community-based safeguarding are concerned, the communities and practitioners are expected to be the driving forces of safeguarding measures, not mere beneficiaries of top-down safeguarding. The evaluation body also encountered situations in which community participation under criterion U4R4 was declared but not demonstrated in the file. Despite long lists of workshops and meetings between stakeholders, the body was not able to identify the nature of these meetings and what kinds of roles the practitioners actually played in the nomination process. This raised doubts concerning the level of awareness among the communities of practitioners about the very purpose of the nomination, the meaning of the inscription, and particularly the purpose of their free, prior, and informed consent. Many different issues arose in relation to the consent letters, their forms and content. The operational directives require that an element is to be nominated following the widest possible participation of the community, group, or, if applicable, individuals concerned. As there is no particular number of expressions of consent prescribed, the evaluation body studied their representativeness, information value, and the very process of acquiring them. While diverse expressions of community consent, including audiovisual materials, are always welcomed, standardized letters, petitions, or signature sheets sometimes could not be considered as expressions of informed consent because they did not demonstrate that the signatories were fully aware of what they were actually signing. In the 2018 cycle, the body examined several forms of consent emanating from children, and hence requested the position of UNESCO's Office for International Standards and Legal Affairs on the involvement of children. Based on its position and recalling Decision 8.8, paragraph 16, the body accepted consent of minors as a form of attestation suited to the situation of the communities concerned and concluded that in such cases, information and the context in which such consent was gathered is important and needed. In several cases, there was a discrepancy between the content of consent letters provided in original languages and their English or French translations. Some translations referred to the World Heritage List, and some mention other lists under the 2003 Convention than the one to which the nomination actually related, or inaccurate expressions like inscription at UNESCO, etc. The evaluation body reminds states parties that they are responsible for the accuracy and quality of their translations and that incorrect references may not be considered as valid since they raise doubts about the informed nature of the consent. In the 2018 cycle, under criterion U5, R5, inventories were presented in a diversity of formats. Some of them took forms of books, lists of resources, sample books, and so on. Although there are no hard and fast rules as how to structure an inventory, inventories always need to include certain information to meet the requirements of Articles 11 and 12 of the Convention, particularly name and description of an element, identification of the practitioners who are associated with it, its geographical scope, current social and cultural functions, and viability and modes of transmission. Regarding this issue, the Secretariat drew bodies' attention to the guidance note on inventorying intangible cultural heritage, which was released this spring and is available on the website of the Convention. It can be used as an aid in the process of designing and developing inventories at the national and local levels. So these were the most critical points of the 2018 Evaluation Body Report. For the other issues, the document 13.10 can be consulted. And on behalf of the Evaluation Body, I would like to thank you for entrusting us with this task.
Thank you, Ms. Kuminikova, for your presentation, which was very elaborate, and where you raised very important issues which should inform the debate of the committee. I now open the list of speakers for questions on the report of the evaluation body. Azerbaijan.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Azerbaijan would like to congratulate the evaluation body for its hard work and for the quality of its report. We know that the report has raised a number of very important issues and challenges. The result of this work will potentially guide us, the committee, and the state parties for the years to come, I believe. Our delegation has noted that just like in previous years, some states have faced serious challenges in describing criterion R2. And we are pleased to hear that this issue has been integrated into the agenda of the meeting of experts and the open-ended Intergovernmental Working Group on criteria, purposes and nature of the list. We know that the observation by the evaluation body that current cycle of evaluation brought up a series of cases where more detailed information on community representation could have been beneficial for the nominations. It is important to explain the way community members have been chosen to represent the entire communities within the framework of nomination process and to give free, prior and informed consent. It is essential to understand who such representatives are and how they derive their legitimacy to speak on behalf of the communities or groups. This has been the reason of referrals under the criterion 3 and 4 in the cases of nominations to both representative and urgent safeguarding lists for the current cycle. We believe this could potentially be avoided in the future cycles by integrating a specific question in the nomination forms where states would be asked to explain how certain community members have been chosen to represent the entire communities, and we have proposed a draft amendment to the decision in this regard. Regarding the examination of criteria R3 in the case of representative list, our delegation noticed that very often the draft decisions refer to safeguarding plans, while criterion R3 requires measures to be described as it stands in the nomination form, and the paragraph 2 of the operational directives. We believe it is important to keep the distinction between the terms measures and a plan for safeguarding, since the nature of criteria in both lists are different, and I would like to propose also draft amendment to the decision on this issue. Finally, our delegation noted that as compared to the previous cycle, this year the report of the evaluation body did not present options with regard to the criteria R5. And we consider that similar approach could have still been applied in cases of number of nominations presented this year, evaluated this year, even if some other criteria within the same files had issues that need clarification. So with this in mind, we will come back to these proposals that we tabled and submitted to the Secretariat for further explanations. I thank you.
Thank you, Azerbaijan. Senegal.
Merci, Monsieur le Président. Je voudrais, au nom de la délégation, féliciter très chaleureusement l'organe pour le travail qui a été, qui vient de nous être présenté. Le rapport est très détaillé et il y a beaucoup de propositions dans le sens de rétablir, ou en tout cas dans le sens de travailler dans la communication entre les États soumissionnaires et l'organe. C'est une question certainement qui sera prise en compte dans le groupe de travail, et d'autant plus que depuis 2 ans on en parle, mais je pense que c'est une question qui est souvent revenue. Comme vient de le dire également l'honorable délégué de l'Azerbaïdjan, le critère R2 pose toujours problème, effectivement, et il faut qu'on travaille peut-être dans le sens d'une meilleure compréhension de ce critère pour qu'il soit mieux justifié, qu'il soit mieux argumenté dans le cadre des dossiers d'inscription. Je voudrais surtout insister, Monsieur le Président, sur une question qui a été abordée, les noms des éléments. Si vous prenez le cas de l'Afrique, où les frontières sont artificielles, ou dans un village, une partie du village peut être dans un pays anglophone, à cause de la colonisation, et une autre partie du village être dans une autre république. Ils ont la même culture, le même rite, qui s'appelle de la même manière, c'est la même langue. Il sera difficile si ces deux... Ce qu'il faut encourager, c'est une inscription, si vous voulez, conjointe, comme ça a été le cas au Sénégal, sur le Kankourang, ou la Gambie, qui est à l'intérieur du Sénégal, qui est une république, si vous voulez, autonome, et le Sénégal, qui est notre république, ont une continuité culturelle qui ne connaît pas les frontières. Et je pense que cela va arriver dans presque la plupart des États de l'Afrique, surtout en ce qui concerne l'Afrique de l'Ouest, où vraiment les continuités culturelles sont telles que ces éléments que nous avons, ces expressions culturelles, ont le même nom, dans la même langue, dans les mêmes groupes ethniques. Et cela, il faut simplement encourager des inscriptions multinationales, mais si un pays décide de le faire, le Niger a déjà inscrit la parenté à plaisanterie, c'est bien, mais d'autres pays ont le même élément chez eux. Si c'était dans d'autres conventions, on va parler d'extension. Mais dans notre convention, il ne s'agit pas d'extension, mais il s'agit peut-être d'encourager des inscriptions multinationales. Je pense que c'est peut-être cela qu'il faut relever, mais quelquefois on ne peut pas changer le nom. Le nom est le même dans ces différentes communautés. Je vous remercie, Monsieur le Président.
Merci, le Sénégal. Maintenant, j'invite la Colombie.
Gracias, presidente. Colombia quiere, pues primero que todo, felicitar al órgano evaluador por su enorme labor y su detallado reporte, pero sobre todo por llamar la atención sobre la función social del patrimonio inmaterial, por encima de sus posibles dimensiones comerciales que muchas veces benefician a las comunidades, pero no es la única manera de beneficiar a las comunidades. Y también quisiéramos celebrar y llamar la atención al comité sobre algo que remarca el órgano evaluador, y es la necesidad de incluir la perspectiva de género y de la sostenibilidad ambiental cuando hablamos de las manifestaciones del patrimonio inmaterial y su salvaguardia. Consideramos que estos elementos, más otro elemento que incluye el órgano evaluador y del cual hablábamos como país en la reunión que tuvimos en Francia en junio, y es la necesidad de hacer del patrimonio inmaterial y el manejo y la administración de las manifestaciones de manera más intersectorial, llevando el patrimonio inmaterial a otro nivel en el que no se quede solamente en las manifestaciones mismas, sino también se relacione con otros elementos del desarrollo social y político de las comunidades, pues consideramos que está en estos tres elementos la posibilidad de generar mecanismos de salvaguardia sostenibles que permitan que el PCI realmente perdure en las comunidades y se pueda recrear también dependiendo de los cambios que las comunidades consideren que deben efectuar sobre su propio patrimonio inmaterial. Muchas gracias.
Thank you, Colombia. May I invite Philippine to share with us their views?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. We thank the evaluation body for its report and hard work. We appreciate the important issues identified in the report. Our delegation is consistently called for dialogue between the evaluation body and nominating states parties, not because we do not support or value the work of the evaluation body, or because we want to change the manner in which it works or make it a mirror of world heritage. It is because of all the problems and challenges we have observed the past 3 years while serving on the committee. We see that there truly is a problem with R2. Almost all state parties receiving referrals have difficulties with R2. We also note with concern that state parties which previously received referrals for nominations are coming back with improved files, but still receiving referrals over technical issues or questions or misperceptions that could easily be addressed through a dialogue or the provision of minor clarifications. Without the opportunity for a dialogue during the evaluation process, it is the committee which becomes the platform for dialogue. But at this late stage, it is difficult to contain the political process of lobbying and the high expectations of communities and stakeholders concerned. It would be much better to upstream the dialogue and put it in an expert-driven context. This would do much to enhance the trust and confidence in the system and raise the understanding of the convention among states parties and communities concerned in a constructive and practical way. Many times, it only takes a minor explanation to clarify an issue. The report clearly indicates the utility of dialogue in its paragraph 28 concerning the adjustment of the titles of some elements. Hence, we believe that the working methods of the evaluation body should be reviewed and strengthened with a view to allowing for opportunity for a limited dialogue with nominating state parties concerned. This would enhance credibility in the system and its inclusiveness. We are willing to continue working with the evaluation body and the Secretariat to define the most appropriate parameters and the light procedure, noting that they would have also emphasized that no one is against dialogue. Finally, we just have an amendment to the decision tracking the language of the General Assembly's sentiments on the issue. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Philippine, for your comments. And now I'll invite Poland.
Thank you, Chair. We would like to express our appreciation for a report and the work done by the evaluation body. We understand and underline the importance of the reflections on the nominations process. We share the view, the opinion expressed by the Philippines about the strong necessity of dialogue between states presenting the nominations and the evaluation body. We agree also that there is a need to undertake a broader reflection on challenges encountered by the evaluation body, in particular in evaluating criterion R2. We have reflected on this issue and we have some ideas that we are going to share with you in the near future. But in this regard, we would like to ask for the opinion of the evaluation body about the possible solutions of this problem. Thank you.
Thank you. May I now give the floor to Cyprus?
Merci, Monsieur le Président. Pour ne pas me répéter, je voulais simplement appuyer tout ce qu'elle a dit l'ambassadrice de Philippines, que nous sommes d'accord pour le dialogue entre les États parties et l'organe d'évaluation, même si on respecte son travail. Si on a un dialogue, on peut éviter certains problèmes techniques pour l'examen d'un dossier. Et ce serait bien, en fait, on peut le voir après, peut-être dans la décision, que quand on va faire les deux réunions, la réunion des experts et la réunion du groupe de travail, de parler aussi du dialogue entre les États parties et l'organe d'évaluation. Merci.
Thank you, Cyprus. Kazakhstan.
Thank you, Chairman. Kazakhstan would like to commend the work of the evaluation body and the very clear presentation we heard today. We also welcome intentions to address concerns related to the application of R2 criterion in reviewing applications submitted by state parties, as well as share some concerns expressed by preceding speakers relating to a dialogue between state parties and the evaluation body. Thank you.
Thank you, Kazakhstan. Austria.
Thank you, Chair. We congratulate the accredited NGOs and experts that had worked on the files for the coherence of their work and the detailed and insightful report, which shows that the evaluation of files remains in process. It keeps evolving over time and with experience, and we also noticed this on the national level. With great pleasure, actually, we took note of the positive effects of the revised form for Section 5. And as my colleagues already mentioned, we see the criterion 2 is still challenging. So it will be discussed by the working group, but we might want to define a set of indicators that would allow for measuring the impact of inscription. So I'm referring here to the overall results framework and indicator 15 on the role of the ICH and its safeguarding in society, for example, which could be a starting point in this matter. And as the delegation of Poland, I would also like to invite the evaluation body to elaborate on their ideas regarding this criterion. We also noted the evaluation body's comments on files related to crafts under paragraph 39. And looking at the submitted files, it becomes clear that a lack of visibility or low interest in traditional craftsmanship often poses a threat to the viability of the element. Considering that traditional craftsmanship can make a profound contribution to several goals of the 2030 agenda, among others SDG 8 and 12. We hope that states parties will continue recognizing, promoting and enhancing ICH elements that concern the skills and knowledge associated with traditional craftsmanship. Unfortunately, there have only been 2 proposals for the Register of Good Safeguarding Practice this cycle, and as this is a very valuable and useful register, not only as a source of inscription for others, but also source of inspiration, sorry, for others, but also for the communities, groups and individuals, because they consciously reflect on the nature of their successful safeguarding measures. This process is also highly beneficial, so it strengthens community ties and further contributes to the safeguarding of the element. So to sum up, I wish to thank the evaluation body for its specific recommendation to states parties, and they also clearly identify those parts of the file that could be revisited and improved. So your work for the convention is highly appreciated. Thank you.
Thank you, Guatemala. May I now invite a representative from Cuba?
Gracias, señor presidente. Nuestra delegación también desea agradecer por el informe presentado. Vemos con interés y con satisfacción que ha habido un diálogo que ha mejorado ese proceso de entendimiento entre los estados partes y el órgano de evaluación. Vemos con satisfacción que el 67% de las nominaciones presentadas fueron recomendadas favorablemente y que se han tenido en cuenta, aunque todavía habrán muchas cosas que ir perfeccionando y mejorando en este proceso en que aprendemos todos, una mejor relación y un mejor diálogo con los Estados miembros. Creo que los grupos de trabajo que están en curso a partir ahora del financiamiento que también ofrece Japón mejorará nuestros métodos de trabajo, nuestros procedimientos para lograr el objetivo final, que es la protección y salvaguardia del patrimonio inmaterial. Muchas gracias.
Thank you. I miss Guatemala, please. Sorry, Guatemala. You have now the floor.
Muchas gracias, señor presidente. Sin duda queremos felicitar al órgano evaluador. Sabemos que han hecho un buen trabajo. Sin embargo, pues no estaría de más hacer un aporte como Guatemala, como país, ¿verdad? Considera que en una convención como la del 2003, que promueve el diálogo como forma de entendimiento entre los diferentes actores involucrados en la salvaguardia del patrimonio cultural inmaterial, es fundamental que los países se expresen y puedan ser escuchados. Es cierto que debemos respetar el criterio del órgano de evaluación, pero también debemos hacer todo lo posible para promover el diálogo entre los estados partes de la convención, y esto pasa por permitir expresarse a los estados que han propuesto alguna nominación y que necesitan hacer algún tipo de aclaración en relación a estas. Hace 2 años Guatemala manifestó que era necesario un diálogo entre el órgano de evaluación y los estados que proponen expedientes. Luego de varias discusiones se determinó que no era el momento para instaurarlo, pues no se encontraron las condiciones necesarias para poder implementarlo. No podemos negar que en muchos de los estados parte de la convención existe la necesidad de fortalecer capacidades, incluso para la elaboración de expedientes de nominación. En muchas ocasiones los expertos de los países siguen encontrando dificultades para interpretar de la mejor manera los requerimientos para registrar y dar a conocer el vasto patrimonio con que contamos en nuestros países. Ejemplo de ello es la constante presentada en la evaluación de ciertos criterios, en particular el R2, que incluso la misma Secretaría ha reconocido existe algún tipo de dificultad para ser entendido. Es importante destacar en ese sentido que la mayoría de expedientes de nominación que el órgano de evaluación consideró no reunían todos los criterios, tienen que ver con el criterio R2. Por otro lado, creemos que no es una cuestión que tenga que ver el número de criterios que el órgano de evaluación considera no satisfechos, sino más bien la particularidad de cada expediente y el contenido plasmado en él. Prueba de ello es que no existe ninguna regla escrita al respecto. Bajo este principio pensamos que los casos deben analizarse uno por uno, sin imponer una regla que penalice a los países, no permitiéndoles expresarse. Por tanto, estimamos que aún quedan varios puntos que debemos resolver en relación al proceso de evaluación de los expedientes de nominación, y creemos firmemente que a falta de un diálogo que permita replantear o reformular el contenido del expediente, debemos mostrar cierta flexibilidad al momento de juzgar las nominaciones de países miembros de la Convención. Muchas gracias, señor presidente.
Thank you, Guatemala. We are already 5:30, and I'll take 2 observations from Japan and Palestine, and then we'll close our session for today. Japan, please.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and I try to be very brief. And I appreciate the very good briefing by evaluation body about current status of the system of the evaluation. And also I listened very carefully to the comment by our colleagues from each delegation with interest and very carefully. And I appreciate all those comments and the statement and briefing because they clearly reflect the need of reflection of the intangible cultural heritage system. And not only the criteria as stipulated in the convention itself, of course, criteria 2 should be discussed, but at the same time, I think, we should also discuss about the mechanism and the procedures which has been established ever since the adoption of the convention. And I just suggested in my yesterday's statement, it is really bad to refer to the information sources outside the file. Or the concept of uniqueness and originality really contradict the definition of ICH. I think these points should be also, very seriously addressed, and that's why real reflection, fundamental, philosophical, reflection is very important at this juncture. And this is the reason why we proposed and we are ready to sponsor the very important process, and it's a great honor for us to do it. Thank you very much.
Let me once again reiterate our thanks to Japan for the support provided to the convention. And now let me give the floor to Palestine, please.
شكرا سيدي الرئيس. فقد اكتشفت للتو أن اليوم الترجمة العربية موجودة وبشكل جيد. اسمحوا لي أولا أن أشكر الهيئة التقييمية لعملها ولتقريرها الواضح والمفصل. وكي لا أطيل عليكم أنا أشارك تقريبا كل المداخلات التي ذكرت والتي شددت على أهمية الحوار، والتي أيضا شددت على أن هناك مشكلة فيما يخص أو عدم وضوح فيما يخص المعيار الثاني. وفي الواقع هذا يقودنا إلى الجدول الزمني الذي تكلمنا عنه بالأمس ابتداء باجتماع الخبراء في اليابان. وبهذا الصدد أود أن أشكر أيضا أكرر شكري لليابان لدعمهم لهذه الاتفاقية. ولذلك أود أن أسأل سؤالا بسيط جدا. Et là, je vais le parler en français pour que ce soit plus direct et plus clair. À vrai dire, maintenant, on a vu, tout le monde est d'accord, R2 pose un problème. Et le dialogue ne sera pas pour la prochaine session. Alors, d'ici la prochaine session, qu'est-ce qu'on va faire avec R2? Je comprends bien qu'il est difficile d'opter pour dual option, comme on l'a fait la dernière fois pour le R5. Mais peut-être on peut demander, et puis ça on va voir avec les membres du comité, que d'abord bien sûr les experts vont examiner cette question, et puis seulement ça va arriver en septembre prochain, c'est-à-dire dans un an à peu près, ou un peu moins. Mais d'ici là, peut-être un groupe de travail peut être chargé uniquement d'examiner une possibilité, un moyen avec le concours de l'Evaluation Body pour trouver une solution pour le R2. Comme les collègues l'ont mentionné, on voit aujourd'hui, enfin cette session, on voit que tous les dossiers qui sont recommandés pour referral, ils ont un problème avec R2. Donc le critère vraiment pose un problème. Il n'y a pas de clarté dans ce critère qui est plus qu'un point. En fait, là-dedans, il y a plusieurs choses. Il y a la visibilité, il y a le awareness, il y a tout ça en même temps. Et puis, le drafting, le texte dans les dossiers ne sont pas clairs non plus. Alors, moi, je pense qu'il faudrait conduire une réflexion d'ici la prochaine session pour trouver quelque chose de créatif, comme vous l'avez trouvé la dernière fois, le dual option. Merci, Monsieur le Président.
Merci, Palestine. On termine avec une grande question. On ne sait pas quand on va avoir la réponse. Mais quand même, c'est bon de poser la question. Ladies and gentlemen, we have now reached the end of today's session. Let me thank everybody and remind you that tomorrow morning the Bureau will meet at 9 a.m. in Kestrel Room on the first floor to continue with its work. The Vice Chairperson from Cyprus, Armenia, Guatemala, Philippines and Lebanon, as well as our rapporteur, please be there on time so that we can begin promptly. For the participants who have booked tours for today, I regret to inform that due to the prevailing weather conditions, these have been cancelled. I will now pass over the floor to the Secretary for some other practical announcement.
Thank you, Mr. Chairperson. I would just I would also like to remind the states who wish to hold performances or present audio-visual material after the examination of their nomination files to please inform the Secretariat as soon as possible in order to facilitate its preparation. Thank you.
With that said, ladies and gentlemen, I declare today's session closed. Thank you.